be with your own thoughts. And that's what I had a lot of this week. And I started thinking about my golf game a little bit. And, we do talk about we're below average golfers. I've been very open and honest about my handicap, about my moments on the course, my weaknesses, my strengths, everything. Right. And I got to thinking a little bit, and, I feel like my game is in a good spot compared to the average person. We talked to Michael Verska from Callaway, and he told us, when you really think about it, like there's people that don't even track their handicap, that don't care about their score and the whole grand scheme of golfers. So being an 18 handicap is actually, a pretty impressive thing. And, it gave me a confidence boost, but I still was like, I could be happy with this. I could be content and whatever, but I find myself a lot out on the course getting frustrated, right?
What's that?
What's frustration, right? No one knows what that's like out of the course. And I think, no matter who you are, no matter how good your handicap is, or, if 70 is a bad score for you or 70 is the greatest score, like everybody has their own difference in kind of how they view their game. Well, all that to say, when I was kind of thinking about everything, it was like, well, there's a reason that I am this golfer, right? There's a reason that I am kind of at where I am at in my score and why I'm not improving. And the truth of that is that I go out, I play golf, I go home and I think about golf, but I don't do anything about it, right? I A lot of what my golfing looks like during the season is going and playing 9 holes, going and playing 18 holes, wanting to do better during that, but not getting better other than naturally, right? Like I've had some natural progression over the past couple of years. I used to shoot in the hundreds, now I'm shooting in the 90s. Like there's been some progression, but I think once you kind of get to where I am at, the natural progression starts to die out really quick. And like you can get a couple strokes probably better. Like I could probably get to a point to where I am shooting maybe high 80s. But if I really want to get to where I like to see my game go, it really starts off with practice. So what I have started and what I am starting now is a journey called the high 90s to the low 80s. Okay. Now, what does this journey include? I think the biggest thing is actually having meaningful practice within a given week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say every single morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do a 2-hour routine that's full of practice. That's not realistic for me. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I work a 9 to 5. I have, my all my responsibilities. Golf is not my main priority in life, and it can't be, just given where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
But there is still things to be done during the week. So I'm introducing you to phase 1 of my practice plan. Okay. This is phase one. We're gonna progress. But basically what phase 1 is gonna look like for me is I'm gonna start doing what I can do around the house, right? And just kind of with the resources that I have available to me now. So I have a chipping net, I have a putting mat. I am going to challenge myself daily to make 50 putts, focusing on 6 to 8 feet. I am going to attempt at least 50 chips. Now, notice how I say attempt and not make 50.
Yeah.
That's part of the progression. But I'm going to attempt at least 50 chips and just kind of go through that. And that's a daily thing. So it seems very little, but when you kind of think of it, throughout a week, I mean, that's 350 putts made from 6 to 8 feet. That's 350 chips attempted from, and the distance on that will vary, of course. I'm going to give myself a meaningful practice routine, which means I'm not just going, a lot of what my practice looks like today is getting a large bucket of balls before a round and just hitting, just getting some warm up. Like there's no real method to it. It's just kind of just going out and hitting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go out. I'm going to get a bucket of balls and I'm going to be meaningful. I'm going to go into it with a routine. I'm going to go into it with a drill for that week, with a club in mind that I'm going to focus on, with some sort of strategy, right? I'm going to go into it and be meaningful about that. I'm going to spend time on the practice green. I'm going to spend time chipping if the place that I go to has that available. And I'm just going to be more meaningful in my practice. The play part doesn't change a whole lot. I'm just going to play. I'm going to be a little more strategic. I'm going to kind of get a pre-shot routine that I stick to a little more. I'm not adjusting a whole lot with my play early on. I'm going to just continue with my day-to-day physical training. I do some running, I do weightlifting. None of that's going to change. And then the other thing too is mental. Mental's a big part of golf, and I haven't focused on that at all. And I think, this is just a very small step, but I actually purchased a book from somebody that we're actually trying to get on the podcast, and it's called The 4 Foundations of Golf. I've read about 23 pages so far. And I've already learned some things in it that will kind of break down, as I go through this journey. But it's already kind of changed my mindset on some things and viewing around a little differently, viewing my practice a little differently. So Caleb, there's a lot that goes into this. It's a lot of little things. It's part of phase 1. But what are your thoughts about this new Owen, about this new revelation that I presented today?
Yeah. So real quick, first, who's the book by? I think I already know who it is, but we'll give them their shout out.
Yes, it's John Sherman. He founded Practical Golf, which is online website that he's been, I think 2015 is when he started that. And through that, he's written 2 books. And this is his most recent. I've actually reached out to him on Twitter, and we're going to try to get him on in the next couple of months, get him on the podcast. And now that I'm reading this and this is part of my journey, I think it's going to mean even more to get him on here.
Yeah. So part 2, how many phases are you going to have? I feel like phase 1 was packed.
Phase 1 is pretty packed. I think when I was thinking about it, the two things that were added for me mostly was the chipping and putting and just one driving range session a week. That outside of that, my day-to-day doesn't change. I'm going to play golf when I can. And that's usually that can be 9 holes a week. That can be 27 holes a week. Like it kind of varies, but I think the biggest thing is going into it with meaningful practice. Everything else in my life stays the same. I'm always working out in some capacity. I'm always reading. This just is a different category of reading. I've always either read, fiction or business related books. So this is kind of switching the category for a little bit. Phase 1 is pretty packed. I don't know how many phases I'm going to have, because I don't know where this takes me. This could lower my scores significantly. This could do nothing for me. I doubt that it's going to do nothing, because practice makes perfect.
Talking about practice.
I don't think that this is going to be the magical routine that gets me to low 80s. I am anticipating probably having a pro that I work with, having, legitimate lessons that go on, not just kind of do it yourself routine that I'm doing right now. So I'm anticipating that there's going to be at least 2 more phases that happen within this. But I figured this was kind of what can I do with the resources that I have available to me right now to work on my game and see where it takes me from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really good idea. It sounds like something I should probably do. I have a putting mat, I have, a chipping little net thing. So, maybe that's like a challenge, not necessarily between us, but like for us individually, where it's like, it's something that we want to do. But yeah, I mean, that sounds like a really good idea. and I'm not knocking like you or your play in any way, but like we both could use it. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it is what it is. Like I'm always talking about how I'm not a good putter or whatever, and that was very evident today, but that's okay. But yeah, I think the one thing I would want to do is just work on ball striking. I think if I could get ball striking more consistent, then I would be in pretty good shape. So, if maybe I come up with some phases or whatever to where one of my biggest struggles is, I like my wedges, I like the distances with my wedges, but sometimes like I try to get too cute. I try to get too fancy. And then I end up, hosel rocketing one, 30 yards to the right when I needed 80 yards dead on. And so like now I have a 50-yard shot that's, potentially an even worse, lie or whatever. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes for you. Cause if you improve, you could be on a fast track to getting that 14.
I could be. And that's my whole goal. We, when we opened up this podcast on episode 1, we talked about our goals, and I just, I threw some things out there, and it was like the revelation was, what are you actually doing to do that? I have the capability, right? Like you've seen my good shots, you've seen what I can do. But actually working on that and progressing with that, I just haven't done anything yet. And if I didn't want to do this, then I shouldn't expect to improve that much, right? Like that's a lesson that I've already read in this book, which is like, if you have to be realistic with yourself and what to expect from yourself. If you're not practicing, shooting in the 90s is actually really good, right? If you're 5 years, 6 years into the game, 2 years into it, like given my circumstances, that's actually pretty good. But if I want to excel, if I want to eventually get to shooting in the 70s or at least shooting in the 80s, I have to start doing something, or I'm going to be stuck here, or it's just going to be a very slow progression. If I really want to get to 14 handicap, if I really want to get down to a single digit handicap, it's got to start somewhere. And I think this is the first step of kind of getting to that point. So, as a part of that, I just kind of asked on Twitter if anybody has a practice routine, and we've gotten a few people that kind of gave some feedback. A lot of people, it's working on their wedges, working on their short game, and that seems to be, Lou, when he was encouraging me to get down five strokes on my handicap, short game was the main thing that he kind of gave some suggestion on. So shout out to Gene for saying he spends a lot of time, at least 2 times a week, working on his wedges and short game. We had Corey. He tries to keep the same shot routine on the course, which is kind of part of what I mentioned in there. And he just said that's one of the biggest things amateurs need: consistently practicing and pre-shot routines. And then Sammy said that Sammy has a putt out mat, hits half a dozen putts almost every day. So sounds like everybody's pretty kind of pre-shot routine, practicing their short game and moving on with that. So Caleb, I guess it sounds like you're going to join me on this challenge a little bit. You're going to start utilizing the things that are close to you already.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I think I've decided. Okay. I'm going to use Lou to the best of my ability, and I'm going to print out 8.5 by 11 sheets of like manager expectations, and then I'm going to put them in a binder, and I'm going to put like the paper protectors on them, and I'm going to take them out to the course. And when I shank one, I'm going to open up. Okay, this one talks about your irons, flipped irons, and I think I am a mental head case when it comes to the golf course. Right. So I didn't want to talk about today, but I will real quick. So I did go, 2 over through 7 holes, and then I went 9 over through 2 holes. That did include a 10 on a par 5. I hit my drive on 9. And it was just so bad. I hit the top of my driver. I lost it. so I kind of just, in a roundabout way, I walked off the course from there. I
Right.
gave myself the snowman and I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with this hole. I'm done with this round. In the grand scheme of things, at that point I was 7 over, which that's better than bogey golf through 8 holes.
Yeah.
So, I need to do that? Probably not. But the mental head case that I was doing that. So I think if I could really tighten down the mental aspect, then other things will just kind of fall into place. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
I would need to I need to get into practicing a little bit. I've got a little bit of space up here in the room that I'm in to, put the putting mat down or whatever. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is definitely the mental aspect. So if I can find a way to like reel that in a little bit, I think that would help me a lot because I try not to set too high of expectations for myself, but with golf, it's like the one thing that apart from cornhole, like I can wreck anybody in cornhole. I'm going to toot my own horn on that, but that just comes naturally. Like, I don't know, but what I want to be good at is golf. So like, and knowing that I am, average, Michael says that I'm above average, which is fine. Today, I think proves that I'm still way below average. But like that kind of situation where I want to be good at golf, so I get super frustrated when I'm not. And if I could find a way to dial that back, whether that's, the goofy binder that, you see me out on the course and it looks like I'm reading a greens book and I'm really just reading tweets from
Yeah.
Lou that says, manage your expectations or whatever. But, stuff like that, I'm sure would help me out a bunch. Obviously, along with the putting, along with the chipping, but yeah, trying not to be the mental head case that I am, I think would help me the most.
Yeah, the mental aspect is overlooked by a lot of people. And I think like the difference between me and you on a lot of cases with the foundation of golf is you just have a deeper foundation. You started playing a lot younger than I did. You played in a competitive landscape a lot earlier. I've never played in competitive landscape really. Um, so you're at a point where a lot of the skills and things are there. Now it's just there's so many aspects to the game, and mental is everybody deals with the mental problem. So mental is just kind of the where you're at, and now it's just not and reading's not for everybody. And so I think even having something like that where it's just like here's tweets from Lou, here's quotes from John Sherman because he puts out quotes from the book on his Twitter and stuff. And just kind of manage your expectations and keep yourself sane with that. So one other thing I just want to shout out, we just got a tweet from my buddy Ty Butler. He's assistant pro out at Maple Creek in Indianapolis. His practice routine is 6 balls each with a 58 degree, his 8 iron and 5 iron, and then driver. So he kind of just hits those are probably his most consistent. And then he goes out to the shortest tee box, or the shortest tee, whether depends on the course, but out at their course, it's silver. And he only hits irons off the tee unless it's a par 5. And he just makes sure to use certain ones. So he's always changing yardages and never just hitting from 100 in each time. So that's a whole different approach where it's like, I'm not going to get, because you can get, especially if you play the same course a lot, you can give yourself a lot of the same shots. And especially with driver, I'm 100 in, I'm 120 in. And especially with at his level where he's an assistant pro at a course, like he's very dialed in a lot of aspects. So this kind of makes him think a little more. So good way of thinking of that. I might have to try that out sometime and just kind of give myself a different view of the course by only hitting irons off the tee unless it's a par 5. So I like that.
Yeah, and I've actually tried that out at Arrowhead where I use nothing more than my driving iron, just to kind of see where my irons were. Now at Arrowhead being the shorter course, it didn't change a whole lot from my driver. So like I'm using a driver, I'm using a wedge. Well, this one I'm using my driving iron, I'm using an 8. So like it really didn't change as far as that went, but I'm sure, if I went out and, maybe alternated or, only used my driving iron 4 and 5 off the tees, and just kind of rotated those, then, I could probably give myself a better look.
Yep. Well, it's always it's an interesting. I just haven't thought of that before. So I like this.
Yeah.
Here we are, and that's the power of Twitter. So we like to ask questions like these on Twitter all the time. Go follow us. It's at Bags Golf, and give us your input on those things. My final note on this is, so we're recording this on July 31st. This is releasing early August. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set myself just kind of to play a benchmark round at the end of August with Caleb, talking like me and you are gonna play, and we're just gonna see, what did this do? Did it do anything? Am I feeling more confident on the course? Am I more relaxed? Is my short game a lot better? And kind of just assess. And then as we kind of head into September, we'll talk about it on the podcast, unless there's just a huge breakthrough or any sort of change before then. So Caleb,
Yep.
we'll schedule, we'll figure out kind of when our benchmark is round is, and we'll kind of get that all squared away. Sound good?
Yeah, that works. I like that.
Okay.